So we'll do a quick winter review, and I'll just go ahead. Okay. Yeah. And so the meteorology side of it, the main reason we had such a very, very wet winter is that we had nearly double the atmospheric rivers that we typically see in a wet winter year. And you'll notice that most of them were concentrated and made landfall between central to northern California. And on top of that, not only did we have double the number of atmospheric rivers, but about around a third of them were equated to be either strong to extreme strength. Because last year, when we were talking about we probably need 2 wet winters to truly pull us out of the drought, well, we ended up getting this, and we got a good snowpack, and we got good precipitation. So in terms of, if we're concentrating just on the Sierra first, this is the Southern Sierra, and the current water year is in blue. The wettest water year is in green. The strong El Nino that we had is in red, and then the average is in blue. And one of the main points we wanted to make with this, as we look at each of the signals, this is the Central Sierra. Here's our current next to the wettest water year. Here's the strong El Nino signal. And then, of course, with the Northern Sierra, which feeds much of our water supply with Shasta and Oroville, we have now surpassed what was the wettest water year. And again, if you compare that to the strong El Nino signal. And we've talked about this before, that El Nino doesn't necessarily always equate to a wet winter for us. And so we just kind of wanted to reinforce that. And then with precipitation, these are just some of the cities I pulled up, the average versus what we currently have, and then how this ranks in terms of the wettest water years. And with downtown Sacramento, we did push into the 4th wettest, so that was pretty notable. And so those are just the numbers, and we'll send this information out if you guys want to look at it in more detail. So basically, in a nutshell, we went from drought to deluge. So that's the meteorological portion. And now I will turn it over to Miss Cindy, our fantastic hydrologist, so that she can talk to you more about the rivers and those levels.
Did you get enough water yet? Some of us are tired of water already. Just about as much as I was tired of drought by this time last summer. So, it was an amazing year. We had amazing things happen all up and down Sacramento Valley, San Joaquin Valley. North Coast didn't get as bad as they normally do, because usually the northwest corner of the state gets things much worse than we do. And despite the green dots here, there was some flooding over on the coastal rivers and stuff. But here in the Central Valley, we had some pretty massive stages. We saw levels that we haven't seen since December of 2005, January 2006. So those are some significant levels to us. Down here in the San Joaquin, we're not done with flooding yet, but we actually had Vernalis, the last point on the San Joaquin River of significance, where after all the tributaries have come in, go above danger stage and stay there for many, many days. We're finally falling in those locations because the reservoir releases have reduced. But the potential is still there for the rivers to go up, because we've got that huge snowpack that Brooke was showing you with the precip amounts. There's still a humongous snowpack up there, and those reservoirs are going to catch it, but they're going to send some more water downstream into these locations. So our threat for flooding is not over yet. Oh, Sacramento Weir. The Sacramento Weir, we had lots of fun with that this year. Opened it in the middle of the night in January, as opposed to a daylight opening, because they were waiting for the stage at I Street Bridge to come back up. They opened only 35 gates the first time, and then they went through the week-long process of closing it, because the river had dropped, and we want the water to stay in the river at that point, not go down the yellow bypass. But then we got more atmospheric rivers, and on February 9th, they opened it again, and they opened 46 of the 48 gates. The only reason they didn't open the last 2 gates, the 2 on the outside, is because they're up against that cement stanchion, and they bind as you open them and close them. They decided that they didn't want to have to deal with afterward closing those as well. And they were able to hold the river at the lower levels with just the 46 open. So this is only the 7th time since the Weir started opening or was built, that they've opened it twice in a year. And there's only been one time when there was a triple opening. And technically, we probably should have closed that someplace near the end of February and opened it again. So as opposed to closing and opening, the state decided to leave it open for the whole period, knowing that there was still more water coming downstream. So, oops, sorry. Okay, reservoirs. Wanted to give you a comparison. October 1 of 2016, the beginning of the water year. Most of the reservoirs had made up some space because we did have a kind of wet fall, but there's still quite a few reservoirs below their historical average at the beginning of the water year. 6 year of drought. February 15th. What is that, 4 months later? Don Pedro spilling for the second time ever. New Melones, which was really empty and it's very big, made up to the historical averages finally. San Luis is above, Millerton is above. Look at Shasta and Oroville. Folsom, they dropped a lot of water real fast with those weir openings and were able to get the lake down. And then let's look at May 1. We've seen some improvements to conditions, but everything's full. And these guys are all pumping out water to make room for that snowpack. So we still got to melt the snow and get it into the reservoirs. And there's still quite a bit of it up there. In fact, as of May 1st, because they do snow surveys on May 1st, and the automatic gauges, of course, are available every day, statewide percentage was still 196% of normal for snowpack. The hardest hit area with the biggest amount of snow is the Central Sierra. That's Friant Dam, New Melones, Don Pedro, those San Joaquin rivers, and the major tributaries, Merced River as well. So that's where we're going to get our excess water when they start releases, which I'm still expecting to show up. And I believe we're now on to the Chief of the Flood Operations Center, Liz Bryson, for our Flood Center review.
Very busy this winter. So I'm just going to give a quick overview. Again, I'm Liz Bryson, Chief of the Flood Operations Center for the Department of Water Resources. So we're the state partner with National Weather Service. We're users of their products, just like everyone else is. And so we've developed a great partnership over the years, and basically to send out one message to our agencies, and so we're not sending conflicting information. So, and that's one great thing about being co-located here also. So the Flood Operations Center activated twice this year. The first time was January 7th through January 14th for those January storms. We were here 24/7. It was the first time we had activated that long since April of 2005. Sorry, 2006. We had a couple of 2-day activations, had an activation for snowmelt in 2011, but this was the first real long-term one in quite a while, following that typical cycle of flooding every 10 years kind of thing. Major areas of concern were the McCollum River, Cosumnes River, Sacramento and San Joaquin were, even though main stem rivers, didn't see too many problems with them. Also had some issues in the Delta in that area. So this is kind of a busy map, but it gives you an idea of where we were looking at issues. So all the red spots had issues along the San Joaquin and those smaller rivers that I mentioned, and also Sacramento. And in the Delta too, had a couple of small breaks. Most of the issues were affecting ag land, so nothing urban, not like we saw in 97, that type of thing. So. Then our second activation, which we're technically still activated, started February 7th. Not that we like the 7th of the month, it just kind of happened that way. So we're technically still activated for snowmelt because we know that there are going to be issues, especially in the San Joaquin Basin. So just so that we're ready and coordinating with our partners, we're still technically activated. We're holding weekly meetings with our local maintaining agencies, so we're keeping that communication open and making sure that they know we're available to assist them if they need it. So still same areas of concern: McCollum River, Cosumnes. This time Sacramento, or excuse me, San Joaquin was added to that list. Not as much of a concern in the Delta this time. In January we had some higher tides that compounded the issue too. So, and these are just some examples of the issues that we saw in the area that we assisted with. And more pictures. And then the incidents that we assisted with were a little more widespread. You can see as far north by Hamilton City and Tehama County, and then all the way down to near Santa Cruz, south of Santa Cruz in that area, and also Fresno County and that. So more widespread impacts this time. And that was all I have.